How to change your firmware and remotely access a 3D printer. All that and more this time on Hak5. Hello everyone, welcome to your weekly dose of Technoless. This is Hak5 and my name is Shannon Morse.
And I'm David Randolph.
I was waiting for the intro. I'm David Randolph. He's from printedsolid.com. He's joining me again for another episode about 3D printing. So today we are going to be getting into the software and the firmware and all the good things that happen behind all the physical components that you see here.
Exactly. Now, one thing you may not have noticed yet about 3D printers, but they actually have Arduinos in them.
Yeah, so you mentioned that when we were building the TAS6, and I was interested in that because I've done a lot of builds with Arduinos. So I kind of understand the background of like the Arduino IDE and working inside of that. Does this work similarly to that? Is it the same IDE and all that?
We're using the same IDE for Arduino across the board.
Yes!
In fact, a vast majority of printers out there are Arduino based.
Cool.
So it's a big part of the original RepRap and how they kind of used them to start with.
Okay.
And it's a little bit of a catch because you know Arduino typically are 8-bit processors.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine for most printers out there. You get the standard, Cartesian style or the Core XY style.
Yeah.
Those types of printers, the math is easy enough for an Arduino to handle it. You get into Delta style printers, and yes, they do have some that run on 8 bits, but in my opinion, I find that that's really the very stressing point of 8-bit technology.
So what we have here, this is the Lulzbot Mini, correct?
That's the Lulzbot Mini.
This is not a Delta printer.
This is not. This is a traditional Cartesian style.
Okay, cool.
Meaning there's one motor for each axis to move on.
Okay, so the Arduino is totally fine working inside of this. It can run everything just fine. It's not going to like overpower it.
Exactly, and there's even on the Mini, there's a little extra power in there still, so we got some room.
Ooh. So we could totally like hack into it or something.
We can hack into it, and that's a big thing. Manufacturers, when they send out their printers, they kind of send it out with safe, normal settings, and they go, this is good enough for your average person to know what they're doing.
Okay.
But since the firmware has been so developed and matured over the years, there's lots of little hacks and mods and little secret features hiding in there that you can activate for it.
So let's say, for example, like I want to change how far the motor goes from one side to another. Like I want to go over the limit that the printer tells me that I can do.
Well, after we get past the mechanical, limitations of it, if I made this printer, 10 times wider and longer, I can go into the firmware and tell it that it's actually 10 times wider and longer and deeper and taller.
That's awesome.
And it's got that configuration.
Okay.
The other thing is that manufacturers, they set kind of max speed limits for all of this stuff.
Right. Oh, so you can like overclock it?
I can overclock it. The prints won't look as good, but I can overclock it.
Of course.
But there's also a lot of hidden features. An example is that Lulzbot by default doesn't have filament detectors on all their printers, so it can't tell if it's run out of filament.
Oh.
Not too big of a deal if you know what you're doing, but sometimes people want to use the last little bit of filament on spools and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We can get in and hack the firmware and plug a little extra switch into this and put a little detector on here that when the filament runs out, it'll automatically pause the print, move the nozzle out of the way, let me put more filament in, and then restart the print.
Well, honestly, I mean, if you're a budgeter like me and a couponer and you want to get the most out of your money with your filament, it makes sense to add that on so that you can use up all of your filament before using something else. So you're not just throwing it away.
Exactly.
That'd be a waste of money.
Exactly. So,
so how do you actually access the Arduino information?
So, it's a Marlin Firmware, and actually at marlinfw.org, that's where these guys have everything. And I have to give a shout out to them because I have to admit, they are probably the best documented Arduino sketch I've ever seen out there in the world.
Okay.
So they have every single documentation, they have every feature. I mean, it's really amazing. We'll actually talk about some of these G-code commands in another episode.
Oh, I love how they set up their website to look like the Arduino IDE.
It's really well done.
That's so cute.
So, but after you come in here and you download their firmware and you open up the sketch like you would with any other Arduino sketch.
Just on your Windows PC.
You'll find that there's a tab already at the top for it. Then configuration.h is probably the #1 file you're going to edit for anything.
Okay.
This is at the most basic parameters, and that's what most of it is.
Okay.
And if you look through here, you'll notice a ton of comments.
Whoa.
I mean...
Well, that's good, though.
And they are not, programmer comments. They're actually very plain English comments.
That's good.
They actually tell you stuff like, hey, this baud rate works most of the time, and why you might want to bring it down.
Oh.
This is very human readable.
I really like that, especially because, you're starting to see a lot of 3D printers at schools and stuff, just like what you're installing through your company. So I think it's important to make it very easy to understand, especially if you're an educator.
Yes.
So that you can introduce your students to this and they won't go like, oh my God, I've never heard this terminology before. Like, I don't even want to mess with this.
I don't understand programming.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of people out there that are modifying Marlin firmware that are not programmers.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've done some code in my day, but I'm way happier with like the Arduino code.
So, and I put it in here for that. Now, all those little hacks and mods and stuff like that I talked about that's been in that you might want to do your printer.
Yeah.
Odds are somebody's already thought about that. Ooh. And Marlin, odds are it's probably already in here.
Yeah.
And they've just commented it out, and you just gotta go find it and turn it on.
So, what's the easiest way to go find this stuff?
Literally, like with any other Arduino sketch, I can go use the find tool. And let's say I do filament sensor. I can start to find the filament sensors as I relate to it. And let's see, find the next one. The distance from the filament sensor to the melting chamber. So you can start finding all the little values throughout the whole thing, and I can even search all of it. It's basic Marlin knowledge to go find out where everything is.
And it searches through all of the different scripts.
The different pages, because there's a lot of C++ in here. There's a lot of Arduino code in here.
Yeah.
And it's all embedded and all working together.
Is there a resource online where I can find information on that would help me, edit this document?
Well,
what if I'm scared and I've never done it before?
Well, there's a lot of manufacturers that they've all posted different stuff. My favorite little one my favorite little story about that is that there was one manufacturer that they didn't post the changes they did to Marlin for everything.
Yeah.
And
but Marlin's open source, right?
Exactly. They didn't post the changes they made to it.
Okay.
So I didn't like that. So even over on our little blog page here, I did a nice little long article where I kind of start off with, if you really don't care and you just want to download these changes for this particular printer, just go in here and download it and be done with it.
Okay.
But then I actually went through every setting and exactly where to find it in Marlin so that you can change it yourself.
That's hilarious.
So I kind of went overboard. Most people are just like, I'll just post the source and let people have at it.
So you made it really easy.
I tried to make it so if people want to understand why I changed what I changed, they can do it here.
Yeah.
And then I put all my little hacks in there that I like the filament sensors, the baby stepping. I like to set some different temperatures. I like to use different hot ends and stuff like that. So I put all those hacks in here. And then I also put some extra notes in for people that, other packs that other people use that I'm not fond of. So there's a lot going on there.
So it sounds like most of what I can get out of my 3D printer, I can just already get because Marlin comes pre-configured, already installed from the company that you buy the 3D printer from.
That is correct.
It's when you want to get deep and dirty into the code on the Arduinos, that's when you want to get deep into Marlin.
You get deep into Marlin, but the other thing is, remember, these manufacturers, they spend a long time coming up with every setting in Marlin for their printer, which means that when a new version of Marlin comes out, they're not exactly ambitious to integrate it.
Oh.
So you might want to go grab their source, find out all the settings they changed in theirs, and then go get the new version of Marlin and move those settings over because you want those improvements and upgrades.
That's good to know. That's a good point.
So, and that's great. I mean, Lulzbot does. A lot of companies, post their source. Some don't, and there's usually some guy like me out there that says, "Screw them. I'm going to go ahead and make all those changes for everybody."
You're the one they all love.
Yeah, exactly. And the article I did one on, I have to say, is that there was actually like 3 or 4 of us out there that we were all doing it at the same time.
Really?
And like within the same week, there's like 3 or 4 different people published their own version of firmware for this printer.
Well, of course that's going to happen.
So I found that was kind of funny that we all did it at the same time.
So is there anything else about Marlin that somebody should know before they start going out and delving into it themselves?
Well, the big thing is know what board is in your printer.
Okay.
The reason why is because most of them are based off the Arduino, 2560 mega board.
Yeah.
Most of them are based off that. They just move pins around a little bit when they make a different board or stuff like that.
Right.
And Marlin actually has all those boards defined for you, so you don't even have to worry about that. You just have to know the rough board you're dealing with. And they actually have a file in there called board.h. And you go in there and you can see all the boards that they support. It's really well documented. But some boards require different drivers. So, because since Arduino is open source, there's a lot of people that have made their own versions of Arduino boards and stuff like that, and they made, either because they're cracks or hacks or whatever you want to call it, they might have made some bad changes to it. So they require their own specialty drivers.
And to figure out which board you're running in your machine, just plug it in via USB to your computer and see if it recognizes it?
Not always. I like to say is that that's a good way to start. And the other thing is that you might actually have to either know the manufacturer and find out what's going on. Example is that Lulzbot uses all Rambo boards by utility machines. So that's really easy to track down. But there's other boards like the Melzi boards, which is a lot of the cheap Chinese printers use that. Prusa loves the Rambo boards as well. Robo 3D uses primarily all 2560 base board sets, so they're pretty easy. But every manufacturer's got a different, a slightly different variation, and most of the time you can open it up, and most of these boards, they really like doing their graphics on the board, so you'll see a nice big name, and that's the name you're going to look for.
That's what Arduino does with all of their boards.
Of course.
Okay, awesome. So from there, once you get everything pre-configured, I don't want to necessarily sit in front of my 3D printer and watch it print all day.
Exactly.
So we're going to find out how to remotely get into it so that we can pause our print and do everything with it, even set up a webcam, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So we're going to take a break real quick for our sponsor, and we'll be right back to talk about remotely accessing your 3D printer.
If you have a great idea, bring it to the web the way Shannon and I do and head over to domain.com. With an awesome domain discovery service and a quick and easy checkout process, you'll have the perfect site up and running in no time. And the guys over at domain.com are huge Hak5 fans, which is why Hak5 will save you an extra 20% at domain.com. Or just send them a tweet and say thanks for supporting Hak5 all these years. So, when you think domain names, think domain.com.
We're back with more 3D printing, and now I am going to learn about remotely accessing a 3D printer because honestly, I'm lazy and I don't want to get up every 5 minutes to make sure that my printer is still doing its thing. I would much rather be able to access it from a smartphone or my laptop over the internets or my local network or something like that. So you've told me that there is a way to do that.
There's a very simple way to do that.
Yes.
So, the printer, the Marlin Firmware, is an Arduino. And since we're in that realm, we might as well throw a Raspberry Pi into the mix.
Oh, of course. Might as well.
Exactly. So there's a great little package out there called Octoprint. And there's actually a distribution called Pi, which is a whole Raspbian distribution that has this ready to go for a standard Raspberry Pi. I like the 3 since it's already pre-configured.
I see. So all you have to do to download that is go over to octoprint.org, click on download, and it looks like it's just, SD card image for the Raspberry Pi. So all you have to do is download the image just like you would any Raspbian ISO or image file, and then you're good to go, right?
Exactly, and it's got most of the features built in there. They even have a plugin repository on it, so if you want to add more features. So it's very friendly for somebody that just doesn't even care about Linux or knows Linux.
Yeah, that's good. There's plenty of people out there who want to use these 3D printers that don't know Linux necessarily. It's awesome if you do, totally support it. It's probably the best use case scenario. But if I don't understand Linux, how am I going to access this over the web? I got to know the information, the web interface.
Well, the IP address. You got to know the basic IP address.
SSID, if it's on Wi-Fi or whatever it might be.
Oh, you also need to get it if you want to get on Wi-Fi or anything like that. On most Raspbian distributions, you're sitting there and you have to, find it and SSH to it, plug it in Ethernet.
Yeah.
They actually, on their little distribution, they have a separate boot partition with a text file called the octoprint.network.
Oh.
And it's just a plain text file that you put the SSID and the password into.
Okay, so after I've put everything on my SD card, just leave it in my computer, edit the text file?
Exactly.
Okay.
And then save it, and when you boot it up, it'll log into that network. Now, just remember, this is an InfoSec show. You are storing your SSID and password in a plain text file on a network accessible storage location.
It's a very good point to mention. So you should probably hide this behind a firewall, put it under a VPN, something like that, right?
Yeah, there's people out there that they clamor about how, I've gone ahead and I poked the holes in the firewall for it.
No!
And I'm sure, it's perfectly fine. I put a password on it, it's fine.
So if you want to learn about how to do your own VPN, watch Hak5. We've done a previous episode on it. It was a very good episode. Yes, please. So make sure you have this behind some kind of private access point. That's a really good point to make. Okay, so once I have it booted up on my Raspberry Pi, like the one that you have set up back here, we'll get a close-up shot of this for you guys. How do I go ahead and access it? It's just a web interface, right?
It's just a web interface. You just log straight into the web page, whatever your IP address is for it.
Okay.
Depending on however you want to find the IP address, because after you get on your network, you just got to go find it.
Right.
If you're on Windows, I like Angry IP. That's a good one to use for that type of stuff. But you find the IP address, and you can bring up the interface.
And there's the interface. Cool, so we have it all booted up, and it looks like I'm accessing it. I see some movement over here since we already started the printer.
And you'll notice that you can control every aspect of it, and you'll see that there's actually several tabs there. There's a temperature, control, G-code, viewer, terminal, all that stuff. The temperature page, you can actually just set the nozzle temperature and the bed temperature if you're going to load filament and stuff like that. You've got those controls ready to go there.
Oh, that's nice.
And so
it has some defaults for ABS and PLA. And
you're in the bed as well. It's got some defaults there for you as well.
Cool.
Whatever temperature works best for you.
Okay.
But then you can go to the control tab at the top there. And if you click on that, you'll notice that there's a webcam streaming load.
Dude!
If I plugged in a Raspberry, a Raspberry Pi camera or even a USB camera, it would go ahead and automatically stream so I could see what's printing.
Oh, that's so cool! I want to make that happen.
Now another cool
That'll
thing.
That'll be another episode right
yes.
there.
Now there's another cool thing is that on that same page, at the very end of that page, there's a time-lapse tab. So if you
up at the top.
Up at the top there.
Okay.
If you click on the time-lapse tab, I can actually set it up to do time-lapse captures of all my 3D prints of that camera and save it to the Pi for me to grab later.
Oh my gosh, that'd be great for like a YouTuber.
So, I wonder how most of those 3D printing guys on YouTube do it.
Right.
Just FYI. So the other thing is you get stuff like terminal, so you can actually see every command that's being sent to it.
Oh, that's cool.
In another episode, we're going to talk about G-code and what some of these commands mean and some of the basics for that.
Ooh.
And you can start to see that we have all this control over the printer.
Okay.
But I can actually just upload a G-code file to this after I've sliced the file in whatever way I want to. And it'll store it on there.
There's an easy interface upload button. Great.
And then you just upload it there, and then you'll just hit the print button next to the file, and it'll automatically start printing.
Dude,
that's
awesome.
And the distribution is really well done.
Okay.
That there's lots of hacks in it if you want to make it even bigger and better and stuff like that.
Whoa.
But right out of the box, you don't even have to do a single sudo command or SSH command or get putty installed or anything.
That's so much easier than when I was doing it.
So we actually, at our facility, we actually teach a class, and we use this as motivation for it.
Yeah.
But we want to teach a few things to get people basically IP, home networking, a little bit about VPNs and security, and then a few Linux commands just to get people a little bit wet in it, and let them understand that the Raspberry Pi is not just for controlling your printer; it's also a full-blown Linux system to play with.
Absolutely. Now, just in case I don't have a computer, let's say that I want to access this over a smartphone. I know we're not going to show it here, but there's also like a touch version of this, correct?
Correct. And when I say there isn't a touch version, through their plugin repository, you can actually install this plugin called Touch UI.
Oh.
And it actually makes a mobile-friendly site to it.
Yes.
And when I'm at home, I got 9 printers sitting there in my house, and I'm extremely lazy. Mm-hmm. So I will sit on the couch.
Aren't we all?
Yes. I'll sit on my couch and I'll turn on the printer remotely, and then I will start heating it up so that I walk in there, throw my filament in, go back out to the couch, hit print.
Oh, that's so cool.
Watch a movie, and then the print's done for me.
Okay, cool.
So, but it runs on my phone, and I find that even reaching over to the screen is too far for me on the printer. I have my phone there, and I'm using it.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm in the middle of watching Stranger Things, I don't want to leave.
Yes.
I just want to be able to hit pause or print or whatever.
And if I'm printing the Rick and Morty portal gun,
that's a good point.
I need to watch Rick and Morty. I don't want to get distracted.
Yes, exactly. You got to get swifty, Okay. I totally understand that reference now. It took me a long time, but I'm finally in the Rick and Morty scene. Sorry, guys. It took a while. Okay, so I want to start a print.
So
can you go ahead and do that?
We can start a print here, and what we'll do is we'll actually do this little Ninja Flex test here that I had going.
Okay.
And it's the G-code slice on it. This will be, we'll actually have to do a separate show on just Cura and slicing and all that fun stuff.
Totally.
But that's a G-code file after I'm ready to go for it.
Okay.
And I can hit the print button.
I like how it's a little loading a paper into a printer button.
Very traditional.
Oh, there it goes.
And now it's off and running. And it'll do all the normal settings and everything you would expect.
That's so cool.
Now, anybody that was overly looking at that screen probably saw a Hak5 keyboard G-code file.
Yes.
You're just going to have to wait to see what that one's about.
What could it be? I think we're going to check out that episode next week. So just FYI, because I'm very interested in this one, this is the coffee filament?
This is a coffee filament. It's a very interesting filament. It's a nice brown color, but you know, there's a feature to it. While it's printing, it smells like coffee.
That's ridiculous.
It doesn't stay smelling like coffee after it's printed. It's only while it's printing.
Just because you can.
Just because you can.
Yeah, because why not?
They do have some other scents and stuff like that, but it's kind of why I like this company. They make interesting filament.
Okay.
And that's one of their secrets. They make a conductive filament. They actually make a magnetic filament, a glitter filament. It's all glittery. So
I want the glitter filament.
oh, that print actually looks really good.
Not gonna lie, kind of a fan of glittery filament.
Oh yeah. So now it's getting up to temperatures and it's running everything it needs to start a print. But you notice you don't have your computer involved now.
No. It's just plugged into HDMI. That's it.
And you can quit that out, turn off your computer, off your run. It's just a little Raspberry Pi running it.
That's so cool.
And if you do a little bit of hacking or something like that, you can actually get the 7-inch touchscreen to work with it. You can get webcams to work with it. You can get multiple webcams to work with it.
Cool.
There's plugins for like TP-Link makes those Wi-Fi plugs that everyone likes to use for their house.
Yeah.
There's a plugin for those just to turn the printer on or off when it's done printing.
Which I'm sure are super vulnerable.
Yes. So once again, you know, keep it outside your firewall and turn off your UDP stuff. Yes, that's why I like to. That's why I really wanted to introduce this concept to you guys, because I expect a lot more InfoSec problems with Raspberry Pis, Internet of Things, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this onto an InfoSec hacker show, because I'm sure there's some people out there that can introduce some vulnerabilities and be like, okay, we need to fix these things. This will be the next thing that happens in 3D printing world.
And yes, please do that, because I know way too many people that come in and tell me, oh, I just open up that port on my firewalls, and they'll actually just, not only will they'll open up port 80 and they'll open up and you go, really?
Okay. Cool.
Really?
All right, well, while that gets set up and starts printing our Ninja, what is it called? Ninja Flex?
Ninja Flex.
While that starts printing our Ninja Flex, I'm going to just go ahead and thank you for showing me how all of this works so I can get started printing my own things as opposed to just printing from an SD card, which I'm super excited about. Where can people find you?
Pentestsolid.com.
Okay.
We're on all the social media sites under Pentestsolid as well.
Awesome.
So.
Thank you so much for joining me again.
My pleasure. And like I said, if you guys, just for the Hak5 guys, if they want, they go to our website and they want to buy some, premium filaments or anything like that. We have the super secret behind the firewall code of Hak5.
Nobody can figure that out.
No one can figure that one out. It's super secret.
Yes.
You can use that for your checkout, during checkout, get 10% off all your filaments.
Thanks for doing that again. And of course, if you want to support Hak5 directly, you can check out hackshop.com and make sure to hit up hak5.org to find out all the things that we are doing during the holidays, because we're probably going to have some sales too. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any questions, email feedback@hak5.org, or you can get in touch with him at printedsolid.com. I'm Shannon Morse again.
I'm David Randolph.
Trust your technolust. I just want to sniff it. I can't smell anything yet.
Not yet. Give it a little time to build it up.
I don't want to wait. I just want the coffee.
I want my coffee now.
I feel really awkward sitting here like sniffing the printer.
I love going, like I said, I love going to the shows, and when people walk by my booth, I go, smell my printer.
Oh, I can smell it. It smells like black coffee.
Yes.
Not peppermint mocha, which is my fave.
It's my favorite, is the black coffee.
Oh my God, that's so weird. That is so weird.
And that's all this company does, is just kind of weird filaments.
Oh man, all right, that's great.